The NFL is an ever-changing league, and that's especially true with the running back position. It seems in today's league, every time a running back gets good, they are either getting replaced, holding out, or unfortunately, get the injury bug. Every year though, players hit milestones and achieve accomplishments in their careers, including the 1,000-yard rushing mark. Some players achieved that for the first time in 2019, where players like Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs, and this one may be surprising, but Carlos Hyde. There will be plenty more running backs that do that in 2020, and that's what we're going to discuss in today's video, is running backs who will hit the 1,000-yard milestone for the first time of hopefully many in their careers. But before we get started, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now let's begin. We start today's video in Philly with second-year running back Miles Sanders. Miles played behind Saquon Barkley at Penn State for most of his career, and a lot of people didn't know who he was, but he has more than made a name for himself over the past couple of seasons. He had over 800 rushing yards in 2019 on over 4.5 yards per carry, and Eagles fans have a legitimate reason to be excited about this kid. He shared carries with Jordan Howard last year, who took 119 carries away from him, and Boston Scott had over 60 touches as well. Miles will be the featured guy in 2020, and barring a huge sophomore slump, will get over 1,000 rushing yards. He had over 1,300 total yards in his rookie year, and there's no reason to think he won't have over 1,800 total yards in year 2, being the featured back. People have been drafting him high in dynasty fantasy leagues, and rightfully so. Miles will go over 1,000 rushing yards in 2020, and if he stays healthy, will go to his first Pro Bowl as well. He had 20 carries in a game just once last season, and there were 6 games where he had 10 carries or less, and as smart of a coach as Doug Peterson is, I'm sure he will want to change that with his young gun running back. And as a whole, the Eagles offense will be very hard to defend in 2020, due in large part to Miles Sanders. Next we go to Tampa, and this may be surprising, but Ronald Jones could have his first 1,000-yard year in 2020. Ronald, as we know in 2018, was absolutely horrible, as he went from a second-round pick to a rookie year in which he had just 23 carries for 44 yards. That is less than 2 yards per carry, and to say the Bucs coaches weren't happy with him would be an understatement. That's not good production from a second-round pick to say the least, but Ronald, to the surprise of many, myself included, did rebound in 2019 with a 6-touchdown, 724-yard season. He averaged over 4.2 yards per carry, and had he been given more carries, he very well could have got there in 2019. He had 4 games with the stat lines of 6 carries for 8 yards, 4 carries for 9 yards, 4 carries for 10 yards, and 4 carries for 13 yards. Obviously, those are terrible games, but to Ronald's defense, all it takes is one 30-yard run to change everything for a running back from his confidence standpoint. He also has a quarterback coming to him who has been accustomed to a good running game over the past few years, and that of course is Tom Brady. The Patriots have finished in the top 10 in rushing yards in 3 of the past 4 seasons, and Tom will be looking to both Ronald and Peyton Barber for the running game. Ronald will need to be able to average over 4 yards per carry again, and I believe he can do that with an improved line, as the Bucs selected tackle Tristan Wirfs in the first round. The Wirfs selection drew some attention from analysts everywhere because he will be blocking for a 43-year-old Tom Brady, but Tristan will also be providing holes and rushing lanes for what could be the first of what is hopefully many 1,000-yard rushing seasons for Ronald Jones. From Tampa to New England, we go to discuss third-year running back Sony Michel. Sony has 2 900-yard years in his first 2 seasons and will be looking to go over the 1,000-yard hump in 2020. Out of his 3 years in the NFL so far, this is his best shot because I do think the Patriots, even with the addition of Cam, will be looking to run the ball more. As exciting of a time as it is for Patriots fans, they don't have great options for Cam to throw the ball to, aside from a 34-year-old Julian Edelman. Double team or even triple team Julian, and Cam is now throwing to N'Keal Harry, who had 12 catches in his rookie season, and Mohamed Sanu, who had just 26 catches in 8 games and averaged just 8 yards per catch as a Patriot. This benefits Sony because they will turn to him more, while the receivers and everyone else has to figure out what they have to do. Michel had 7 games with 19 carries in 2019, and the Patriots were 7-0 in those games. Granted, a lot of those games consisted of teams like the Redskins, the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Bengals, but Sony will continue to be fed, and there's no reason to think he won't be. I really do think Bill and the Pats will lean on Sony more than they ever have. There will be a period of time to adjust for the timing between Cam and the receivers, and during that time, it will be Michel that fills that void, takes the carries, and runs to his first 1,000-yard year. I think Sony not only does that, but I also think he will finish finish in the top 6 or 7 carries in the NFL, and with that much volume as a running back in a 16-game season, 1,000 yards is bound to happen. We now go from New England to the complete opposite side of the country as we go to Arizona to discuss Kenyon Drake. Kenyon had a great 8-game span as a Cardinal, as he went from having just 174 yards in 6 games with the Dolphins to having over 640 yards and 8 touchdowns in 8 games with Arizona. That would put him on pace for nearly 1,300 yards over the course of a season, along with 16 touchdowns. The Cardinals finished 10th in rushing yards in 2019, and a lot of that can be attributed to the stretch Kenyon had. Up until becoming a Cardinal, he had a pretty forgettable career, as he had 3 seasons with less than 700 yards rushing, and he looked to be just another second-string running back, but he now has hope after a change of scenery. The addition of DeAndre Hopkins will only benefit Kenyon because defenses have to account for him taking the pressure off Kenyon, and if they don't account for DeAndre, then we will see many Kyler Murray to Nuke Hopkins touchdowns. The Cardinals also miraculously landed tackle Josh Jones in the 3rd round of the draft, which only bolsters their line even further. Kenyon is the perfect example of a player that needed a change of scenery. He had 3 100-yard rushing games out of 8 as a Cardinal, compared to just 2 as a Dolphin in 54 games. Sometimes all a player needs is a change of scenery, and Kenyon Drake needed just that. He is in a prime position to go over 1,000 rushing yards this year in what hopefully is an exciting season for Cardinals fans. Next, we go to New Orleans to discuss Alvin Kamara. Alvin, believe it or not, has never had a 1,000-yard rushing season. He has had at least 1,300 total yards in each of his first 3 years, but he has been a receiving threat just as much as he's been a running back. He has 81 catches exactly in each of his first 3 years, and only has a few hundred more rushing yards than he does receiving yards. And believe it or not, Alvin only has 2 career 100-yard running games. However, as talented as a running back as Alvin is, one would have to think he will eventually get 1,000 yards in a season before he retires, and I do think 2020 is that year for a few reasons. Drew Brees from 2014 through 2016 averaged well over 40 attempts per game, and from 2017 through 2019 has averaged less than 35 attempts per game. Drew's arm strength is naturally decreasing as he will play this season at 41 years old. The Saints, even with the addition of Emmanuel Sanders and of course Michael Thomas, will be looking to run the ball a little more as Drew gets up there in age. They will be doing everything they can to keep Drew healthy for a deep playoff run, and that starts with running the football with Alvin Kamara. I don't think gimmicky flea flicker type plays with Taysom Hill are the answer, as he has thrown just 13 career regular season passes. I do think Alvin is the answer, as he is a lifetime 5 yards per carry player, and he is too talented of a player to not have a 1,000-yard rushing season. That changes in 2020, and Alvin will, if healthy, go to his 4th straight Pro Bowl, and I'm saying that based on his talent, not on whether or not the Saints go to the Super Bowl, to be 100% clear. Next is David Montgomery of the Bears, who had a very frustrating rookie season from fantasy owners' standpoints. He finished with nearly 900 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns, but 113 yards and one of those 6 touchdowns came in a Week 17 game against the Vikings when fantasy generally doesn't mean much. David had 6 games in which he averaged less than 3 yards per carry, and an additional 2 games where he averaged just 3 yards per carry. Montgomery will certainly need to average more yards per carry, or YPC, in 2020 to get to 1,000 yards, and hopefully that's not an issue. Chicago was 6-1 in games where David had at least 16 carries, and the usual argument for teams having good team success when running backs carry the ball more doesn't really apply here, because in none of the games where he had that many carries was Chicago ever up by 15 or 20 points and were just trying to run the clock out and feed David in that manner. And hopefully for Montgomery's sake, the Bears have better quarterback play in 2020 with Nick Foles than they did in 2019 with Mitch Trubisky. A quarterback plays a decent role in a running back's success, because if defenses aren't threatened by the quarterback, like they generally aren't with Mitch, then they can just load the box and stop the running game and force bad quarterbacks to try to beat them through the air. The Bears averaged just 3.7 yards per carry as a team in 2019, which was the 4th fewest in the NFL, ahead of only the Steelers, Jets, and Dolphins, all of which missed the playoffs. Running the ball is vital to team success, and David Montgomery will play a big role in the Bears' 2020 success. They went 8-8 last year with a horrendous offense, and if they can be even average on offense with that dangerous defense they have, they can be a very hard team to stop. Montgomery needs to step up, and if he does, he will have his first 1,000-yard year, and as we said, will play a big role in the team's success in 2020. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. If you ever have a suggestion for me to do a video on a certain topic, please leave it in the comments, as I try to read all the comments. And if you're still watching, as you guys know, I appreciate the time out of your day. Please like the video, it helps a ton. Also subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.